What's your then I nope the frick out story, NSW. I was a camp counselor for special needs kids for a couple of years in my teens. The bathroom was usually taken, and always disgusting, so one night I groggily wandered out towards the trees to take a pee. Maybe 3 steps into the woods, I heard rustling noises, like something was moving through the trees. I looked up and saw a bear maybe 10-15 feet in front of me. I shouted holy crap, it's a bear, and both I and the bear noped the frick out as fast as possible. My dad was jogging on some trails near a campground we were at one summer. He was crossing a meadow and almost ran right into a black bear that was kind of bear jogging toward him. He yelled, then the bear yelled, and they both turned and ran away in opposite directions. Still love this visual 15 years later. I work as a cable guy. I had a disagreement with a subscriber who wanted me perform work not offered by the company. Tensions turned hostile, and he said, hang on, I've got something for you. He went into his bedroom and I heard a drawer open. I didn't know what he was getting, but I wasn't sticking around to find out. I hauled butt out of there. It was in a big apartment complex, and I had to park around a corner so it was easy to disappear. I called into my dispatch and told them what happened. They cancelled his account and added notes into the system blocking him from future service. Maybe it was money. I was caving for the first time with someone who was experienced. He wasn't using ropes consistently and kept securing the rope to himself rather than something more stable. I was getting more and more uncomfortable as we got deeper and deeper into this narrow cave. I shuffled along a ledge and couldn't see how far the drop below it went. Came to a tiny room with 2 outlets, both of which were small tunnels. He looks at me and tells me I need to go down the tunnels first because I'm small and not likely to get stuck. At that moment I realized he wasn't acting like I was a beginner and it was his responsibility to keep me safe. His main priority was exploring the cave. At that moment I also realized I could no longer visualize the way out of the cave. I felt the walls start to close in and realized that I could actually die if I made a mistake in there. I noped the frick out. I don't remember deciding to run. I just know I was suddenly sprinting. Thank God I made it out without slipping, falling, getting lost. I half ran, half scrambled until I was laying face up in the dirt at the entrance of the cave panting. He looks at me and tells me I need to go down the tunnels first because I'm small and not likely to get stuck. This is your big clue that the guy didn't really know what he was doing. The biggest person always goes first. If he goes first and gets stuck, you can go get help. If you go first and then he gets stuck, you both die. I was in New Orleans a year or 2 after Katrina. I was with a family member helping with rebuilding in one of the poorer residential areas. It rained every dang day I was there. About a week in, any sources of draining were full and a lot of the streets were flooded. The water on the street in some areas was a couple feet deep, sometimes due to damaged pavement. Forgive me if my terminology is incorrect. I took a walk to relax after working and was sticking to the higher sidewalks. Anywhere the water wasn't high enough to go over my boots. I'm originally from California and was really enjoying the wet climate. It was something new. As I was walking, I saw what looked like an exploded tire section or piece of rotted wood floating in the street river, maybe 5 feet away. Yeah, then it turned towards me and I saw eyes and nostrils, and realized that it was a fricking gator. Spun on my heel, walked back, and asked some of the guys I was working with why the frick they lived here. Alligators are actually pretty docile, not like those bastard crocodiles. I was walking my GF home after clubbing in Toronto a long time ago. She lives at Dundas and Sherbourne, shady as heck area, and we wanted to get some food. Stopped at a 24/7/711 type store with a bunch of drug dealers hanging out outside. She knew a couple of them cause she bought weed or something one night when she was drunk, so she said it was fine. She went in to get food. I had a smoke outside and was fricking around with my phone. But the guy she had just introduced me to and said was fine told me his phone just died and he had to call his brother to pick him up. I had just moved to the city from a very small town and didn't even think twice. After I gave my phone to him, he started pacing and looking a little squilly and I knew something was up. Sure enough, the guy took off running. I'm a pretty big dude and was in awesome shape at the time, so I was like, frick this, I'm chasing him down. Chased him down the street. He turned into an alley behind a ghetto apartment building. I followed. At the entrance to the alley he turns around and goes, "I will frick you up, bro. I will frick you up," with his eyes looking all cracky. I was still pretty calm and just said, "Listen man, my girlfriend's right behind us. She's calling the cops. Give me my phone and walk away. I won't tell them it was you." He got a look in his eye like he was almost gonna give it back. Almost, but nope. He runs into the alley, jumps into a construction dumpster and starts throwing bricks at me from the dumpster. I dodge about 5 bricks from 20 or so feet back, the whole time yelling at him to give it back. The cops are coming. Then he has my phone up to his ear and goes, "This is my brother's building. Him and his boys are gonna come down right now and frick you up." This is when I realized I am a drunken farm boy and not Batman, so then I noped the frick out. Crap like that is why I don't let people use my phone. I'll give change to find a payphone if I have it, but my answer is always sorry, I'm about out of minutes if they ask for my cell. Stayed in a village with family. They had an outhouse a couple hundred feet from the main house. Really had to take a dump. Opened the door. Saw a boa. Must have been over 6 feet. Curled up in the corner. Noped the frick out. I used to work at a hotel as a housekeeper. The rule was when you finished all of your rooms you had to go help the other housekeepers. Cause they like to go slow to get more hours and we just can't allow that. Anyways, so I wander up to the second floor down at the far end. Room 226. A double queen. The room hadn't been stripped yet. The bedding and trash is still in there. And I thought that was odd because normally we have all of the rooms stripped by noon and it was 3 PM. Well, I opened the door and this overwhelming stench of crap just slams into my face. Not even like normal crap smell either, like someone had been devouring hot sauce covered shrimp at an all-you-can-eat buffet for 3 days. I pull my shirt collar up over my nose. It can't be that bad. They probably just didn't flush, right? I press on into the bathroom, eyes beginning to water, my throat having dry involuntary seizures. I force my poor eyes open. Nothing. The fricking bathroom is spotless. Oh god, where is it? The panic sets in. I must go further into the darkness. I must cross the hotel room and open the window. As light illuminates the room, I can finally see what the crap demon has done. Do you remember the scene from Dogma, where the crap demon comes out of the toilet? I think he left there and checked right on into my hotel. Crap was smeared all over the white duvets and sheets on both beds. This dude had literally crap himself smeared it in the bed. Switched beds, and crap in that one too. He left a trail of sickly brown matter across the carpet, decorated with tiny surprise crap nuggets just for me. I noped. I told front desk that I absolutely refused to clean that room, and if they wanted to write me up, fire me, I would be fine with that. I would call hazmat, dear god that's nasty, or burn it. Burn it, ow. Not mine, but a friend's. He was lying in bed when he was a kid and could hear scratching coming from the attic above. It got louder and louder until he just couldn't fall asleep. Thinking it was just mice, he picked up a shoe and threw it at where the scratching was coming from, and it just went straight through ceiling. Suddenly thousands of wasps come pouring through the hole. He noped straight out, leaving his little brother, asleep, to fend for himself. R.I.P. little bro. Walked into a shed to get some tools at my uncle's house on the lake. Saw like 15 water moccasins. Nope. They just cute little snakes. Posted this before a few times I think. Sat down on the toilet. A very large house spider immediately climbs up my crack. Like literally right up my ass. I panic and stand up, trapping the spider between my cheeks. I freak out more and sit down again and it falls into the bowl. Didn't flush. Just ran. I feel it important to mention that I now always check under the seat. Always. This is great. I can just picture that poor spider gasping for air between some butt cheeks, not knowing WTF. One time I was hiking with my family in the woods of Missouri, and I kicked a stump and a few bees flew out. Suddenly my dad turned and looked at me and went white as a sheet. Apparently a huge swarm of other bees had executed an aerial pincer maneuver and descended from the rear. Because my sweater was completely covered in bees, I tore off my sweater and ran for the car. But by then it was too late. The bees had their revenge that day. TLDR. Not the bees. I worked in wildlife rehab for a while. We stored newspaper for lining bird cages in the barn. I went out there, lifted up a stack of papers, and at least 20 brown recluse spiders ran out from underneath it, and then I got foe of Oklahoma. Moved to Washington. We only have like 3 different poisonous animals. Not me but a friend of mine. He went to go hang out with his co-workers after work because he was new to the job and wanted to make friends. For 30 minutes of hanging out they started doing H in the bathroom. He called me to go pick him up. I used to work on Catalina Island for a Boy Scout camp. One summer I was given a large cabin for myself because I was out there for so long. Only thing is, it was a mile into the woods, about half a mile away from camp. One night on my first week there it was raining like crazy and I really had to pee. It wasn't really worth taking my bike down to the bathroom so I just went by a tree a little ways from my cabin. As I'm peeing I hear a large deep noise behind me followed by a warm breath on my neck. I turned around and saw a bison 3 feet from me staring me down and breathing heavily. I instantly pulled my pants up, thinking to myself, this is how I die, and bolted back to my cabin. Once I was there I jumped into my bed and covered my whole body in my bed sheets and just kept shaking the whole night convinced it was gonna attack me. I don't know why but I just imagined the bison also pee while you had your stare down. So I'm about 5 or 6 and being a blonde white kid in Pakistan you get a lot of nope situations like people wanting to touch your hair and crap. But anyway I digress. So the night before there was this huge rainstorm and it had washed some worms into our house under one of the side doors. Being an avid lover of the creepy crawlies of this world I got a jar, picked them up and put them in. I show my parents and one of the gourds nearby kinda goes white and lets my parents know that these abnormally large worms were baby cobras and are in fact much more venomous at this stage in life. I remember holding the jar close to my face after hearing this and seeing tiny little black eyes and a little black tongue flick out of their mouths. I handed the jar to my dad and walked out. To this day it scares me how close I came to dying. TLDR. Young put some worms in a jar, found out they were extremely venomous cobras. Later your dad will post on Reddit. My son once handed me a jar of poisonous baby cobras. I noped the frick out. I was gonna wake my dad up because I just made breakfast. I opened the door and caught him masturbating with the quilt covering everything but his feet. I quickly noped out of there. If I have learned anything in this thread, he was probably beating a spider off his dong. I was probably around 13ish years old walking around alone in a nice part of the old port in Portland, Maine when older couple stopped me on the busy sidewalk. The old port is just an older part of the city with those typical multi-floored brick buildings with businesses on the ground floor and apartment spaces on the upper floors. They had a weird accent and asked me if I could help them and that it was very important. They wanted me to come up to their apartment on the 6th floor to start their oven for them because it was a religious holiday that prevented them from starting their oven. Young me thought this sounded absurd and I was curious about the whole situation so I agreed. We go through a door in between 2 stores that leads to a dark hallway with a couple doors, a set of stairs and an elevator. My curiosity turned to discomfort at the sight of this hallway. They then said that they will take the elevator. It was the moment when they were standing in the elevator door motioning me to get on with them that I noped the frick out. Get outside and notice that the building only has 5 floors, which made the whole situation even creepier. Told my parents and they freaked. Juice. Oh boy, so a few years back I went to Australia for a couple of weeks on vacation. We were touring the Darwin area and were in Crocodilus Park, a kind of scary crocodile zoo. While our guide was showing us around, he stopped us and said, "Alright, now look up." Above us were thick webs covered in spiders the size of baby fists. "They eat birds," he said. My nose started to bleed. "I don't know why you were so worried. You're not a bird." Was falling asleep with the wife under a recently brought out of storage duvet when I felt something tickling me. I playfully tell her to stop it. She responds by snoring in my ear. I feel the tickling again running across my crotch, so I flip the covers open and a large house spider, little smaller than the palm of my hand, is running amok on my genitals. I leap out of bed, flinging it off my crotch and proceed to do the "oh god get it off me" dance while stomping on the thing. She wakes up and is terrified of spiders, absolutely terrified. It may have run across her hand. I look her in the eye and tell her I was chasing Cass, tell her to sleep and crawl back into bed. I lay awake for a long time thinking about getting to third base with that spider. I feel like I'm getting closer to the spider orgy section of the thread. I was 7 or 8 and had been sent on a court-ordered visitation to see my biological father in another state. He wasn't really interested in seeing me or my siblings so much as he was interested in making sure my mom had a couple of weeks each summer where she was unhappy being worried about us BC. He was neglectful and a drunk, but he right on the beach, so it could have been worse. My siblings and I did an adequate job keeping ourselves entertained while he worked during the day and ignored us at night. In Idaho, he had disappeared for the evening as usual, probably to a bar, and my sisters and I had walked down the beach boardwalk where there was a Ferris wheel and bumper cars and the sort of crap elementary school kids can easily entertain themselves with for hours every day, all summer, and even get a couple of free meals from the workers since it was kinda obvious we weren't getting regularly fed. So after a few hours I decided to walk the 2-3 blocks home, like I did a few times a day, every single day that summer, without any more supervision than sometimes my 10 and 6-year-old sisters with me. I walked a block and got this definite sense something was not okay. You know the one. I look around and there's a car away back from me slow driving down the street with the lights off. I walk a little faster and the car is still just slowly rolling along, keeping the same distance from me. I just knew this wasn't an okay thing, so I sped up, and as soon as I turned the corner to my dad's street I took off running. I heard the car accelerate and I ran off the sidewalk and underneath a nearby house, all of which were on stilts as they were right on the beach. I rolled under the door of the outdoor shower and jumped up on the bench so my feet couldn't be seen. I heard the car cruise by because the road had a lot of gravel and crunchy shells on it, and a male voice said, "You see her?" and another voice said something back. I stayed right where I was for I don't even know how long before I got off the bench and peeked out from under it. I didn't see the car anymore, so I crawled from under the shower door and ran like heck for my father's house a few doors down and sat there wondering what the heck I was supposed to do because my sister was still at the boardwalk and they would walk home the same way I did when they got bored. Thankfully they came home a while later just fine. I told them what happened. When dad came home, drunk, we didn't bother telling him because he wouldn't have cared, and we knew better than to start a conversation with him when he'd been drinking. TLDR, pretty sure I nearly became a child kidnapping, or worse, statistic, but I got away. I want to go back in time and have a stern word with your father's lawyer when it comes to visitation rights. This sucks. I was at a bus stop in Madison, WI, having unknowingly missed my mega bus because they were running Coach USA buses that day. Anyway, as someone who doesn't take buses very often, I went inside the gas station to use the ATM. As soon as I grab my cash, this tiny woman appears, tells me a sob story, and asks if I can spare some money for a bus ticket. I trade her a 20 for a 10, and she tells me she's still short X dollars. I tell her I'm sorry and that the $10 was all I could spare. She then goes, "Hey, can I ask you a personal question?" I'm all about talking about my feelings, so I'm like, "Yeah, go for it. Is there any way I could do you a favor for an extra $5? Nope, don't think so." I walked out of that gas station real fast. My buddy's mom had a shotgun pointed at the door I was behind, thinking I was an intruder. It was a sleepover and I was using the restroom. She was even ready to pull the trigger. I had no idea until after it happened. Jesus freaking Christ, how did you find out that one? Pasted from another thread. I noped the frick out of this relationship. I walked in on my girlfriend blowing her biological father for crack. She said she was a former addict when we started dating. Turns out it was a lie. She had been secretly giving her father sexual favors for drugs during the entire relationship. I discovered later that her father was feeding her and her sisters pills from a young age to get them addicted. They'd then repay him with sexual favors or he'd stop giving them pills. I hope you called the police on that. Crap's messed up. Just finished dinner on a first date. It's around 10 PM. Got turned around leaving the city. Wound up in West Baltimore. Almost out of gas. Pull into a gas station. Pretty sketchy neighborhood. I tell her to stay in the car. The pumps are turned off, so I had to prepay with cash inside. Lock car door behind me and head for the building. As soon as I open the door, I see this giant man holding a gun. repeatedly kicking the bulletproof glass, shouting, "Gimme the fricking money" over and over. I froze, and he turns to me, and the only thing I could blurt out was, "Hey man, you know if they got a bathroom in here?" Dude looks me dead in the eye and calm as frick says, "Man, I'm busy. Can't even tell you that crap right now." Full on flight mode after that. See ya later, alligator. Was barefoot in the yard throwing a tennis ball with my dog. Took a step backwards and stepped on the hose. Except it was not a hose. It was a copperhead. Don't really remember the next few minutes after that as I was busy noping the frick out. But the story ends with my dad killing the snake with a shovel and putting it in a Ziploc bag in our freezer. For some reason. It's so whenever you go to pinch an ice cream bar when you think no one's looking, you'll see the beheaded snake and think, man, maybe my old man ain't one to frick with. My college roommate had moved out a few months back, so I moved my laptop over to his desk. I was reading an article, had my hand on my knee and I was bouncing my leg up and down absent-mindedly. At one point I bounced it high enough that the top of my hand hit the underside of the desk. Only it felt strange, like I'd run it into a bed of brittle nails. I got down on my hands and knees and looked underneath, and saw boogers. The entire underside of the desk was covered in dried snot stalactites. A field of petrified nose needles. I sprinted out of the room down to the bathroom at the end of the hall and basically boiled my hand in the sink. I stayed on my side of the room for the rest of the year. LOL. Had a buddy that did this. Hate to break this to you. They jerk off under the desk and don't use anything to catch. The CM hits the bottom of the desk and dries into little stalactites. I'd go reboil that hand. My office is connected to a community housing building that houses lots of prostitutes and drug addicts. One day I arrived at work early. My supervisor asked me if I could go take some pictures of a stairwell between the office and residence. I initially thought they just wanted to do some maintenance or something and needed some shots. So I opened the door to the stairwell to find needles and used condoms all over the frickin' place. There's also a small puddle of pee and a crap stain down a few steps. I immediately closed the door and told my supervisor to do it her dang self. Fuck that shit. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.